But love will tear us apart again.
In this video, I want to talk about how when you lay out your best laid out plan on how to deprogram your JW spouse or kids, or prevent your kids from going into the JWs, giving them an educated guess on how they should approach this. Sometimes your plans, you sketch it out, it's solid, it's proven, and sometimes you have to stop and react to an emergency or something that happened within the JW microcosm that caused you to stop what you're currently doing, your regular scheduled program, and move to sort of react or litigate a certain problem. In my case, that would be homeschool, but the JW version of homeschool. And I'll explain. And within this problem that I have, or my kid really, you sort of have to play the passive-aggressive role so things will move smoothly, I would think. Yes, in the beginning you have a lot of anger because when you get hit with this homeschooling idea from a JW perspective, even though it wasn't laid out as a homeschool sort of proposition for our kids, I know exactly where this is going. Let me tell you right off the bat, and I don't want to give too much away until I tell this particular story, but in the end, this homeschool idea has backfired on my wife big time. So I would explain as I go along. From the Jehovah Witnesses perspective, they're really big fans of homeschooling their children, getting them out of secular school and just, having their own curriculum at home. And as you know, the Watchtower is no big fan of secular education or further education or continuing education, so a person could better themselves, whether mentally and satisfactory to themselves, going into a career that would fulfill their passion, let's say, or just having an easier time making money so they can have more disposable time with other activities. And this particular idea of the Jehovah Witnesses not liking secular or further education is really biting them in the ass right now, from the majority of their congregants not having good enough, well-paying jobs to do both their ministry and making ends meet. They're really struggling. And I can see from my wife's side of the family, they're all JWs for the most part, and they are struggling. And each stages of the generations, from young adults just getting out of high school, suffering from just having ends meet. And as you know, in this day and age, inflation is really having its effects on everyone. You get to the middle age folks and they are not having their ends meet as well. And then you get to, like, for example, my in-laws, they're both retired with no sort of retirement plan whatsoever, other than Social Security. So it's no secret. The JWs, they don't really manage their money very well, the people themselves. The society as a whole, they know how to, make money, I guess. But as far as our kids, in the state that I live in the United States, it's really easy to pull your kids out of secular schools, public school, and have them stay home and homeschool yourself with absolutely almost minimal supervision from the state as far as requirements for reading and writing and things of that nature. I think in this state here that I live in, all you are required to do, to have, or to show proof of is somewhat of an attendance record. So you got something like you're supposed to be in school for 78 days. It's just an example. Just jot down what days did you do, and I think it's a minimum of 4 hours a day of homeschooling, whatever subjects. There are no papers or testing material or state testing sort of methodology to submit to the state other than the attendance. And that attendance is solely up to you to fill up however you deem fit. You would think anybody else who's really into it, homeschooling, and there's nothing wrong with homeschooling. I think is a really good idea if one of the parents is that's their number one job to do that, and I think it's a good idea. But with the Jehovah Witnesses, in some cases, and I'm only going to talk about my case here, it's really not that great. I've known of one adult who had somewhat of a shady homeschooling experience when he was growing up, and it didn't fare well for him in his adult life. He's in this one dead end of a job, and he's afraid to kind of move on from it because he's pretty much hit that glass ceiling of that job. I mean, there's no more room for improvement, and pretty much the world is leaving him by the wayside. He still lives in his mom's basement, literally, which was converted into like some sort of a loft. And he's got a new wife in there. He's an ex brother-in-law, not with the family anymore. But it didn't turn out too well for him. The older community that I used to live in, there were 3 families that have pulled their kids out from school, and they're homeschooling them. And you could just imagine what the curriculum is. Yeah, I'm sure it's jw.org propaganda. Basically, it's going to be just that. And my wife, she was really attracted to that idea of homeschooling. She always talked about it. She would say, she will bring up the subject, hinting of homeschooling. It's like so-and-so is homeschooling, and so-and-so person, mom, is homeschooling their kids, all their kids. And she found like a little homeschooling sort of circle here where we live at. They're not JWs, they're just regular folks who pull their resources together for homeschooling purposes, recycle books within themselves and things like that, and materials, and having sort of like gym play date, physical exercise days where they get together and do things. Though my wife, I don't think will ever do that. But she always brought that idea up many times. So now COVID hits. This is 2-3 years ago now. And at that same time when that pandemic has hit, we were moving locations. We were moving from our home in an older community to this new place that we're at now. So for kids, for our kids, it's uprooting their world completely. I mean, I've moved many a times, and so did my wife. So it's no big deal for us, other than us being upside down in our home when we sold it. And it was an escape from the narcissistic mother-in-law. For my kids, it was, they're leaving their only home that they ever known, friends, and school here, where it was just fantastic. It was a nice little community. The community that we're in now is pretty nice as well. So during the pandemic here in the States, we had roughly a year and a half, 2 years of practically remote homeschooling, but the kids had to log into their school with the computer, and it was like a Zoom classroom, and we did that. We picked up the books, and that was okay. It wasn't great. I'm sure both my kids, they really didn't learn that much. Not as if they were gone physically. I mean, that structure, that whole dynamic was just shattered. So I would say they lost a couple of years of, critical grade school learning. And we're not teachers. My wife and I are not teachers. I work at really long hours sometimes. And my wife, easy to walk over from my kids' perspective. They could have their way with my mom in a way to get them to do whatever they want sometimes, until I come home and lay the law down, if you will. The pandemic is over, and my oldest, she goes back to high school, and she is thriving in there. Even though with a little bit of learning disabilities and things like that, the school has the resources to kind of bring her back up to speed and give her the extra help that she needs to pass, high school and things like that. And she's doing great. I mean, high grades, 3 point something grade point average here in the United States. And she's having a really good high school experience, which I'm glad. My youngest, on the other hand, she's really smart. She is a self-starter, likes to do research on her own, and but going to a physical school really wasn't her thing. She was having difficulties making friends and things like that, and it was, just being out of school for 2 years and then going back into it, and in another community, in another school altogether, starting over, was really hard on her, and it was affecting her, I would say, mentally, in a way. She was a little depressed, and things like that. My wife decided to sell her the idea of homeschooling now. She wants to give that a try. At first, we took her out of public school and placed her into a charter school, which is a little bit different here in the United States, in the state that we live in. And that wasn't working out too well. And if anything, it was actually a little bit more stressful for my kids and us as parents, because a lot of the responsibility was placed on our lap to have her, do well in school and things like that. So if she failed something or was on the way of failing, they could potentially kick her out because she's not meeting up to the specification that the school has outlined as far as minimal work to be done in that school. So that was really difficult on all of us. The next step after that was going back to public school, or my wife's suggestion of homeschooling. I didn't want homeschool to be done at all because, like I said, I work long hours, and my wife, she's really not the studious type. Is not the studious type to try to teach my kid math, because then she would have to like relearn it all. I mean, it would have been a disaster, and it was. I found some online curriculum on the internet, which is okay for her grade level. All she had to do really is just follow the curriculum on the net there. And then, English, math, and all those other subjects with quite a few electives and things like that. And my wife just needed to supervise her to make sure she did the work that was specified. And I would check up on her as well and make sure she was in there. But after a while, she slacked off quite a bit. But okay, that's the technical part of this homeschooling thing. My kid, she thinking that she wants to do this homeschooling, that it'll be perfect for her. She just wanted to get out of going to physical school. And now that she knew that there was a possibility of doing homeschool only, which my wife was feeding her all this time, the idea of homeschooling, they were both on board with it. And I was pretty much, I couldn't say no. I couldn't say, I can't be the bad guy to set my foot down and say no, and because the whole dynamic of the family would have hit the wall pretty hard. So, like I said in all my other videos, you have to kind of like step back and reassess and replan everything and see what you could do about this scenario. I'm sure they wouldn't tell this to you or anybody else, or even have this on paper in the publications. I haven't researched this, and I'm really not interested in finding out if the Jehovah Witness Watchtower Society has recommended doing homeschool or anything like that. I'm sure this is a ploy to isolate the children, to not go to public school and experience another frame of thought or difference of opinion, let's say like evolution and things like that, and also not to be involved with other kids that are not Jehovah Witnesses. Already my kids, both of them, were told or suggested that don't make friends with non-JWs because they don't love the J person or the J God. A creepy thing is, one of the kids will have a conversation with grandma on the phone, and I would overhear grandma ask one of my kids, "Well, does that person love J God?" And that sort of thing. The whole idea of the Jehovah Witness homeschooling idea is to just to isolate the kids from other kids that are not JWs. Become ultra insular once again. So, from my wife's perspective on this idea, it's a great way to separate my kids from the outside world. Keep them sheltered more so than ever. From my kid's point of view, she gets to get out of school and go into school altogether. She does have a little bit of anxiety and things like that, but the way I see it, she's going to miss out on some prime learning experience, socializing skills, dealing with normal everyday interaction with people in general, not just JWs. She's missing out on quite a lot. To tell you, this has been a total failure on the whole idea for my kid. It's not working whatsoever. She is losing out on so much. It's just not working at all. Not for our situation here in my family. Of course, what ends up happening is my wife will suggest this. They both, the kid and my wife, gang up on me and want to do this homeschool thing, or at least try it out. And as predicted, it didn't help. It doesn't work at all. My wife, she suggested, and that's it. She doesn't participate in my kid's learning at all. She doesn't help break out a book or checks up on her. She pretty much leaves my kid to her own devices, and I'm stuck holding the bag as far as getting the curriculum, signing up for an online course, checking in on her all the time remotely. I know when she's playing games or on the curriculum on the homeschooling, and it's all on me now. Everything. I'm the teacher. My wife, she's just on off on her own, thinking everything is fine. She doesn't participate whatsoever in her learning, other than suggesting to take her out of school for homeschooling. And the whole idea of that, like I said, is just to isolate her from outside influences. My wife's been talking to her old friends back in our old place there, and picking their brains about homeschooling and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that they talk about, oh, this is great because then the kids won't get influenced and picking up bad habits or messing up good habits. One of their little favorite Bible verses that they use to justify not making friends outside the church. Okay, so what am I to do now? I'm really stuck. I'm stressing out because I got not only to make a living and work and everything, on top of teaching my kids about the JW dogma or try to get them not to join the religion by giving them a choice, though. I want to stipulate that. I'm giving them a choice, an educated guess on what path to choose. So, okay, stand back, look at the situation. Let's see how I could use this to my kids' benefit. I wouldn't say my benefit. This is all about the kids. How can I use this situation to kind of better this divided household thing with a cult? I'm going to straight out say it, with a cult trying to indoctrinate my kids into the Jehovah Witness religion. And that's all this is just to isolate them, because I'm pretty sure the other families that have their kids in homeschool, they're reading the Bible, but actually reading the Watchtower magazines, and just like I would say Catholic school or the Islamic madrasas. Those are Islamic schools where those kids just read the what do you call it, the Quran, and possibly other subjects, I'm not sure, but it's very heavily influenced with the Islamic religion. They call them madrasas back in Pakistan and so forth. And schools like that, and the yeshivas, I think they're called, from the Orthodox Jewish religion, where it's a Jewish school. But I got to give it to the Jewish schools, though. It's an excellent program, I would say. I mean, 2 languages and all the subjects in between. And the Jews, they love their education. So, not knocking them for that. But as far as the JWs, not that whatsoever. It's like that elder that got caught or prosecuted for not reporting a CSA case, and he was found guilty. It was a criminal investigation. He was found guilty, him and another person, I believe, and they were sentenced, and they have to do, what do you call it, community service. Passive aggressive thing that the Jehovah Witnesses did as far as community service. These elders just go to the Kingdom Hall and clean it out. They clean the Kingdom Halls as their community service. Yeah, that type of situation, that type of mentality or mind frame is what homeschool is to Jehovah Witnesses. It's just another indoctrination tool for the new generation. And there is a lot of homeschool kids out there, and adults from 20 years ago that's gone through this particular evolution. So okay, I set up an online course that has the curriculum for grade school for my youngest. She's going through it, and I give her a little bit of extra credit or extra work to do, to an extra subject, let's say. I made up a subject that I've made up, and I called religious indoctrination and how to spot it. And then I have another one with how to debate. So all the debating tricks that Jehovah Witness does, like strong arm, fallacies, the red herring fallacies, all the fallacies when they do their little evangelizing, how they argue with people, and how to spot these fallacies. That's a course that I've had my kids sort of go into, by way of I send them YouTube videos on those subjects. And the other course was just to watch XJW videos, and then we would talk about it, when we're alone or whatever, and that would be her credit or her schooling in a way. So I'll use this debacle of homeschooling to, I wouldn't say my advantage, to my kid's advantage, so she can learn, all these techniques and the inner workings of the JW world as far as indoctrination and manipulation and fear, guilt, and all the trappings of the Jehovah Witness theology. She's studying that stuff or researching all that stuff along with myself. So that's one of our school subjects, homeschool subjects. With my wife thinking that this is a good opportunity to isolate or insulate my kids from the outside world, she doesn't realize that my kid is actually doing the truth about the truth sort of researching on her own as a school subject. And my kid, she's excelling exceedingly in this particular field right here. She's at the point right now where she's somewhat challenging my wife on her theology. And she kind of, and I've said this in my last video, she's using my technique of using the Bible to counteract the JW theology, but I wouldn't say theology, but I would say like the manipulation of the Jehovah Witness, getting into your business, like why, like for instance, my kid doesn't want to wear a dress to the meetings, and she came to me for help to see, what can she do about that. We looked up a Bible verse that says it doesn't matter, pretty much doesn't matter what you wear as long as you bring your heart to God. That's all he sees. He doesn't see what you're wearing, as long as you're respectful and things like that. But you don't have to wear a dress. It doesn't stipulate that at all. At this point, that girl could hold her own with any JW right now. She does the passive aggressive thing when they come over to so-called visit my wife. Really is to talk to the kids while I'm not there, while I'm at work. She just hides herself in the bedroom and doesn't come out, and that's it. In that particular sense, what my wife has started with the homeschooling thing has, I don't think she even knows it, but it's really biting her in the butt as far as that regard. This whole homeschooling thing in our household is further sort of separating the Jehovah Witness theology from something that my kid really doesn't want to get into. And my kid, she actually told me this, that even before all this and everything, she pretty much was beginning to find out on her own the JWs is something that she doesn't want to get involved with. She was already learning that on her own. She does the research and looks it all up, and like I said, she's a smart little girl. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she winds up being a trial lawyer or something to that effect. She could really. She's scary. She keeps me on my toes, let's say, and I am fully proud of her. As far as our education and everything, we made a deal. Talking to my kid that's in homeschool right now, that she will go back to school, physical school, an actual public high school, when she reaches the ninth grade. So that's the high school grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That's high school here in the United States. And because I believe those are the years that really count. Everything counts. So if you do well in high school, you'll be able to get scholarships and things of that nature. But I'm going to really have to work real hard to get her math skills up, because it's a weakness of mine and my kids as well, and she is way behind on that. So it's going to be challenging, but I think she could do it. But yeah, the homeschool thing, it's a thing with the Jehovah Witnesses. They love it. They want to separate the kids from the rest of the world and from other kids, other social, exchange with other kids, just learning how to navigate the social sort of aspect of being kids out there, and looking at Reddit with other ex-JWs there talking about how they were homeschooled or just being secluded, part away from that environment, really hurt them on how to deal with the outside world. They have problems dating and making friends, and things of that nature. So it's going to be an uphill battle with that with my kids. Like I said, even though they're not really part of the religion at all, other than being, relatives in it that pester them at no end to try to make them join. they're not leaving this particular JW thing unscathed. They're seriously lagging on the social aspect with dealing with other people, other worldly people. I try to do my best bringing them out there, try to, socialize with people and things like that. But it's really hard, and I could tell that it's going to affect them a little bit on how to navigate the world, pretty much. So that's that. I don't think this has been talked about enough in detail. The homeschooling, the JW homeschooling thing, but it is a thing. It's a danger, in my opinion, and I'm dealing with it. But in this scenario, what they thought was something that could be to their advantage, the JW advantage, as far as isolating my kids away from everything, it's really just forcing my kids to do their research on their own in their computers in their room during school hours and finding out all these things, especially if I give them an assignment on, videos that I send them that would, tackle a certain social scenario being JW related by fantastic ex-JW videos that are out there. My kids, she likes to watch TikTok videos from other kids her age, sort of making fun of the JWs in a way and giving them a glimpse of their lifestyle as physically and mentally out kids, because that is a thing. That's just another strategy there, something that you may need to deal with. This is what I'm dealing with now, but it's not going to be to the JW's advantage in this case. So that's my story, JW homeschooling.